Welcome to the final episode of this season from Guild Wars 2 Online. Today we have a guide on the latest PvP map, Spiritwatch. In a previous episode we discussed some tactics regarding team setups and strategies for the map, and that's linked below, but for this episode I want to review the map in general and discuss some useful tips and tactics. The secondary objective of Spiritwatch is very important. An orb spawns in the middle of the map and a player can collect this orb and run with it to any of the nodes to score points. At the time of posting this video, the orb awards 30 points if taken to a node you control, 15 points and an instant neutralization if it's one the enemy controls. After scoring it will respawn in 10 seconds. Now, currently when you grab the orb, you're marked on the map for both teams to see. You're slowed by 40% and a big glowing light comes from you. Basically, you're going to get focused. This has brought about some interesting builds which we've discussed before to make some very effective orb runners, and as a result some builds to counter this have also appeared. We covered all this before, and if you want to check out the links below you'll see those videos. There are some things to keep in mind with regards to the orb. Firstly, you cannot teleport, portal or stealth or use swiftness while carrying it. Teleporting and using portals will cause you to drop the orb, and stealth and swiftness are simply disabled. However, at the time of posting, it is possible to become invulnerable while using it and use movement skills, such as the Elementalists Ride the Lightning. When the orb carrier enters the down state, they will drop the orb, allowing it to be picked up by someone else. However, there are other ways to get the orb out of their hands. If you can delay the player from scoring the orb, it will reset with an announcement of "someone is stalling for time." In many cases, it's easier to stop the enemy from scoring by just locking them down with CC than it is to actually kill them. Stopping someone from scoring has a few tactics to it, but the keystone of all of it is using the terrain to your advantage. To get the orb to any of the nodes, the orb carrier will have to cross bridges and walk along ledges. Using the knockbacks and fears to push them off really delays them. This will also deal added damage, and if their H pool is emptied by falling damage, they will be instantly defeated. A very powerful trick your team can use. Of course, it won't just be the orb runner running alone, they'll be escorted by one or more players. This makes teamfights off nodes very common, so bring some AoE if you can. Instant revive utilities and skills like Time Warp can also be very powerful in these encounters. The map is also riddled with choke points. AoE builds can take big advantage of this, and trap builds can be used to great effect. Area of denial skills like the Guardian's Barriers can be used to effectively shut down areas and stop the orb runner or roamers in their tracks. Like all PvP maps in Guild Wars 2, Spiritwatch has 3 control points: Bear, Raven and Wolf. Bear and Wolf are the 2 outers, and they're pretty unremarkable as far as control points go. The same goes for the central point Raven. They're all of equal size, and there are very few options in the way of high ground or cover to use. What is interesting, however, is the number of routes between the nodes. Both of the outer nodes have a back entrance which is only accessible from the spawning point of the team nearest it. This gives clear routes for the backpoint defender to return to the node after being defeated. They then have 2 other entrances. One comes up from the centre of the map, and this is the route often used by the orb runner as it's the fastest. However, this route does have a great number of opportunities to knock them off bridges and ledges. The final route goes from the centre to the outer nodes and back. This route is the most interesting as it gives them very quick routes for players to make fast pushes to either cap the central node or push from the centre to the far node. These back routes from Raven are quite important. Defense wise, it allows players to move quite freely between the back and middle nodes, allowing for some quite interesting tactics where 2 players can support each other, defending both nodes at once without having to rely so much on mesmer portals. From an offensive standpoint, it's possible to disrupt the enemy orb runner by slipping in front of them and neutralising the node. Roamers can also use these routes to make quick ganks at the mid and far nodes while also being in good position to harass and stop an orb runner. All these different routes also give some strong possibilities for glass cannon range builds to shine through, as they can kite effectively and be often in hard to reach places. There are lots of line of sight angles from the bridges and ledges which allow very effective range attacks to support in ganks. All these factors come together to create a very interesting map with lots of depth to its tactics and build options. There are also some different ways to play it, whether you want to focus on running the orb or prefer to control the nodes and just stop the enemy from running the orb. It makes for some interesting games. The variety in build options is also something very nice to see. Bunkers for holding the nodes or tanky builds for running the orb, CC builds and high DPS builds for stopping the orb runner, range builds for taking advantage of the different elevations, and AoE builds for teamfights. It creates some really great variety and some interesting matchups. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and as I mentioned, this is the last one in this season of Guild Wars 2 Online. I have some big plans for the future, and there will likely be some content coming out from time to time on the channel, but we're not going to have any schedule for a little bit. But as soon as anything starts to get concrete, you'll be the first to know. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.